Hello and welcome to Think Watercolour. Today I want to demonstrate how you can use a simple photograph like this one. This is just a very simple shot of a field in Cheshire that I took, I think it was last year. It's a pretty ordinary view, but I want to show what you can do with even the most basic photograph. So let's get started. This is a a block of Baohong 300 gram rough paper. I said before, it's my favourite alternative to Saunders Waterford. I'm just waiting for a delivery of Saunders Waterford sheets, so just using this Baohong. It's a really nice paper. It's got a nice rough texture to it, and I've sketched out the scene very, very simply, loosely, just the couple of fence posts, one much older and battered and shorter, horizon line roughly a third of the way down, and some fields here. So I've mixed up some colours, so let's get started. The first colour I'm using is a mixture of yellow, it's cadmium yellow, and some raw sienna to get this fairly light mix, and it's quite a watery mix. This is just for the field, so I'm going to start there. Very quickly lock it in. Oops. Painting on dry paper. I've not wet the paper first. I just don't need to in this case. And it's just the background initial wash for the lightest lights in the field. And I've mixed up some sap green for just some patches in the grass, in the very loosely painted in the foreground. So these are the initial lights, which they will dry lighter. Always remember that when you're mixing colours, whatever you've got on your palette, if it looks right, just darken it slightly, because they do become much lighter when they dry. I'm just going to put some of that other mix in, just a few patches here and there, just to vary it. So this is just initial wash, not being too careful, fairly vague. Just being a little bit careful around the fence posts, but not worrying too much. Adding a little bit of yellow again, here and there. While that's drying, I'll do the sky. What I've done here, I've mixed up some cerulean blue and a touch of cobalt blue for some of the blue sky patches. I'm very loosely going to indicate some blue in the sky, a few white clouds. I'll soften some of the edges in a second with some water. Maybe getting a bit lighter along the horizon line. Just adding a little bit more pigment into the mix. And then just with some clean water, just a damp brush, just soften some of the edges. Don't mind leaving a few hard edges. So, clouds generally don't have many hard edges, but let's see how it turns out. Mop up some of the excess water, don't want that running back. Okay, so what I'm going to do is let that dry, because I will want some harder edges in this field where I'm going to indicate some of the ground behind the stubble. This light colour, when it's dry, will represent the lightest bits of the stubble in the field. So I'll come back to this once it's dry. Okay, the initial washes are now dry, so I'm going to start with the distant trees. I've just added a little bit of jadeite green to the sap green, just for, maybe I'll add a little bit of cobalt blue as well, just to make it a little bluer. It's in the distance. These trees are in the distance, so it's just a distant hedge at the back of this field. A few clumps of trees here and there, very loosely indicated. And a little bit more sap green just to vary the colours a little bit. Okay, that's fine. This is the first of a series of demonstrations I'm hoping to do where I can actually talk to you live as I'm painting. In the past I've always done the painting and then produced a voiceover, but I'm trying to talk as I paint, but I tend to forget to speak, so I apologise if there are gaps. For the there's a group of 3 or 4 trees here that I'm going to do slightly darker because they are a little bit nearer, but not. They're still at the other side of the field, but they're sort of halfway across the field, I think. So again, starting with some darker tones in the middle of the trees. That's where they're darkest. This is jadeite green, by the way. And I will mix in some sap green as well. So there's a bit of variety there, leaving some gaps to let the sky show through. And then towards the edges of the trees, of the leaves rather, they tend to be a bit lighter because they're away from the main body of the tree, and the light does shine through them and make them a little bit lighter. Maybe add a bit of yellow in there as well. This is cadmium yellow, just dropping in a bit of yellow as well, just a bit of variety. There will be some quite large branches coming across here, which I will be adding some leaves to as well, but for the time being I'm just happy with that. That's fine. I'm going to let that dry because I want to add the tree trunks, though they can bleed in. I guess I can maybe let them bleed in a little bit. Just I'll darken the bottom parts of the trunks. It's just an indication of what's there. It's either 3 or 4 trees, can't quite tell from the photograph. So I'll darken the tree trunks in a while. Okay. I'm going to go quite dark. This is trying to remember what colour I've used. It's sepia. I couldn't think what colour I'd use then. This is sepia, and I'm just going to use this fairly strong mix to add some contrast in the field. Just some, again, very loosely painted, just roughly indicating the original furrows in the field. This will dry lighter, not being too too fussy. As it's further away, I'm going to just use some clean water and just blend that together and come down with some, just to indicate furrows in the ground, and as it goes across, you see fewer furrows. As we get closer, showing more of the stubble. This is background to the stubble, and it grows at all sorts of angles, so again, it's just an indication. I guess you'd say it's negative painting. Just going to go across a little bit there, just a bit of variety. As I said, I do apologise if I waffle when I'm talking, because I really find it hard to speak and paint at the same time. I don't know why. I guess I'm not a natural born teacher. But hopefully this demonstration does show what I'm doing. This brush I'm using is it's a sable reservoir brush, detail brush, and it's got this point and quite a heavy body, which means I can get a lot of paint in the body, but keep the point fairly loose. Just going to let that blend under the trees there. Just trying to make sure I keep the fence post fairly clean. Just mixing some colours in there, and then a little bit more greenery over this side maybe. And it's a very loose painting this, so it's not meant to be too detailed. So I'm just interpreting what's there, trying to just try and demonstrate to you what you can do with a fairly ordinary subject to make it an interesting painting. For these foreground grasses, I'm just using some whatever's in the palette just to mix it all together. And it'll look a mess for a while, but once I start putting in some more detail, it should hopefully come together. Again, trying to make sure I don't destroy the white of the paper where that fence post is. Just going a bit darker in a few places in the foreground. I may add just a touch of burnt sienna to the mix. Be careful because the paint's in the palette's still quite wet. This is for some darker patches. Again, letting it all blend wet in wet. Really just scumbling this paint onto the page. Okay. Making sure I get a fairly hard edge on these posts. Should be fine. Okay, once again, I'm going to let that dry and then come back. Okay, that's pretty much dry now. So just going to put the background colour for these fence posts in. Just using it's yellow ochre with a touch of cadmium yellow just to lighten it slightly. This is just the background for these fence posts. I'll be adding some darker detail shortly once this is dry. Let's take a little bit out on that side. I think it's quite light. So, okay, for the branches of there's some tree branches in the foreground, and I'm just going to use some sepia, pretty strong mix of sepia, just to indicate some branches coming in. Great thing about a rigger is that you get a nice springy end to the brush, and you can really paint some nice branch shapes with it. Most of this will be covered by leaves anyway, but just wanted to get the location of the branches in. Before I start adding some leaf details. That's fine. And using the same colour, I'm just going to darken some of these tree branches and tree trunks in the middle distance here, leaving gaps so that the branches disappear into the foliage. Just going to add some green undergrowth at the base of those trees. That's fine. And keeping with the rigger, I'm just going to start adding a few foreground darks of some of the grasses growing up here. Again, keeping it very loose, using the roughness of the paper to pick up sort of a dry brush technique. I'm not trying to paint every blade of grass, but I'm just trying to add some depth to the painting. Literally picking up whatever's in the palette colour wise. It's variations of the same greens. Really not being particularly careful. As I said before, it's a very loose painting. Just an indication of what's there. Again, I've stopped talking, sorry. Can't help myself. I'll lose lose concentration and end up going into a world of my own when I'm painting. I'm sure other artists are the same. But I'm supposed to be demonstrating this, so I better start talking again. Right, okay, so I've left a lot of gaps here and there, but I will be filling those in shortly. Just going to get the detail brush again and start with some cadmium yellow. I'll just literally drop in some initial leaf shapes. Doesn't matter if they blend with the branches. It's all going to cover this area anyway. Putting these foreground leaves in starts to add depth to the painting. That's the theory anyway. I know I'm going over those background trees, but it's absolutely fine. As you can see, this brush is ideal for doing this sort of thing. It's lovely and springy and holds a lot of water in the body, but the tip is really good for just very loosely indicating some leaves. I'm just going to add some ultramarine into that, and it's the ultramarine that's going to turn these greens much darker in places, a bit more jadeite maybe. Trying to make sure I leave some gaps for the background to show through, but at the same time I want these foreground leaves to be quite strong and jump forward on the page. So that should be fine. Trick is to know when to stop fiddling, and that's usually about 2 or 3 minutes before you decide to stop fiddling. Okay. I'm going to just drop in some more darks here and there with that ultramarine and jadeite green mix, just to pull this foreground forward. Darker colours come towards you and lighter colours tend to recede, although that's a rule that is easily broken. Well, that's another story. Okay. Okay, I've let that wash dry as well, so just mixing up some a grey with some ultramarine and burnt sienna, trying to make it a fairly warm grey for this the left hand post, which is pretty weather worn and beaten up, so just putting in some darker patches here and there. Just trying to indicate the grain of the wood. The other post is younger, shall we say. It's a newer post, so that's more of a green tint to the right hand side of it. I think the light's coming from the left in the photograph, so it's much lighter on the left, so I'll just soften that. Maybe go a bit darker at the base where it's in the grass. And then just run a brush down the left hand side with this grey mix just to indicate it a bit better. I'm going to just use some water to soften this one, and I'll go in with some darker lines in a moment. So it's slowly coming together. I need to think about what I'm going to do with this area. It looks a little bit full, so I'll give that some thought for a second. Okay, just mixing up sort of a grey browny colour, and I'm going to use the side of the rigger just to break up this stubble. Just to make it look a bit less like it's sort of stuck on. So as I say, it's a fairly vague representation of the photograph, and I'm not too worried about how it looks, but at the end of the day it's just a quick sketch just to demonstrate what you can do with a fairly ordinary subject. Trying to make sure I leave some lighter patches, but not nothing too distinct. I'll probably come back and add some more in a sec. I just want to get some more green behind this fence post just to lift it off the page a little bit. Okay. And for this other fence post, I'm just going to use some fairly neat neutral tint just to put a few darks in here and there. It just helps to give the illusion of grain in the wood. A little bit more at the base, a few more dark stripes of wood grain. I'm trying to paint a realistic photographic representation, but I just want to indicate that it is a wooden fence, no, rather ancient wooden fence post. What I'm going to do is just lift out some of the colour with a flat brush, just to damp. This is a small flat brush, dampened, just drag it across, lifts out some of the colour. Okay, so I'm just going to put some, with a rigger and some white gouache, I'm just going to indicate a few highlights in these grasses at the front. Nothing too complicated. These will fade as they dry, so although it's an opaque colour, it can become semi-transparent if you don't mix it too strong. So same with these, the stubble in the field behind. Just a few highlights here and there just to lift it. And the final touch with the rigger really is just to put some of the barbed wire that's forms part of the fence. So let the line break up, don't do it as one long line, just break it up. Just using some fairly strong neutral tint here. And this fence, this wire fence is it's a fairly large grid. There's also some rather rusty bits of old barbed wire from the old fence post that was there first, so just going to indicate that with some burnt sienna. To indicate a few of the rusty barbs. Define the edge of that fence post a little bit more. And a few touches of fairly strong white gouache, just a few highlights here and there along the wire. Not too many, just enough to help pick it out. from the background. Well, I've let that whole painting dry now, and notice there's a few little spots here and there in the sky. So rather than lift them out, I'll just turn them into a couple of crows flying away over there. Up there maybe. Oops, too far. We all make mistakes, and that's one of them. So I will lift that out. There we go. And I'll just add a few more leaves. Just on these smaller branches at the end of the foreground tree. Nothing too major. That just finishes it off. Okay, I'm just going to drop in a few splatters of yellow and maybe some orange in the foreground here. But I'll just let these birds dry first, because I want to put a piece of paper over to prevent the splashes going everywhere. Okay, I've got a piece of paper covering the page. I'm just testing the splatter on the white paper, just to make sure it's not too heavy. Just a few dots here and there. It just livens the painting up in the foreground. A hint of some flowers, wild flowers growing. Again, don't want to overdo it. I'll add some, use some pyrrole orange just to drop in some too much. That's where you need to practice. There you go. Let's lift those out. It's fine. Always a problem with doing that sort of thing. I'm just going to get some white gouache as well, just to add a little bit more interest. And I think I'm pretty much done. Thank you so much for watching this video. I just wanted to demonstrate that with a little imagination you can take a fairly ordinary subject and create something a little more interesting with your watercolours. It's a great way to test and practice your watercolour skills, so do give it a try, and always remember to have some fun. If you found this video useful, do give it a like. It always helps with YouTube. And if you're not a subscriber, do subscribe and hit the notification bell for future videos. And thanks again for watching.